Alright guys, we're going to talk about drawing hands. So there's a thousand different ways you can do this. I'm going to briefly go through a couple of them. Feel free to search on YouTube and find some other ways. There's really no wrong way to do it. But whatever you're doing, you want to be breaking the hand down to basic forms. Okay, so that can be something as simple as starting with like a mitten shape. All right, some people will just start with something like that, all right, to get you like a mitten shape. All right, but even that is going a little too far too fast. What I like to do is I break down the parts of the hand. So if I'm gonna have like the body of the hand, right, I'm gonna make it like a three-dimensional form, okay? And then from there, if I wanted to go and simplify the hands, the fingers into like a mitten shape, I can. All right, but even from there, what I really want to do is I want to look at these fingers more as cylinders, and each joint I want to see as its own cylinder. So if I'm drawing a thumb, I'm going to do something like that, right? This hand's going to be going away from me, sort of like this position. All right, so the beginning of these fingers would actually be below that knuckle line, okay? But I would draw those fingers like that. All right, so I break all those fingers down. From there, then I start taking those basic forms and I start drawing, more of a full shape. So I get, from that thumb into the webbing of the hand, right? A little more into the muscle of that thumb, start coming up into the padding of the hand, and then it's just a question of getting the actual shape of that finger, right? And each finger next to it would be doing similarly, right? So we would keep kind of going with that to get those shapes. Now when you get into there, no matter what method you do, then you have to obviously add, details. So you're going to have creases and wrinkles on the knuckles that are going to move with the contour. So when I say with the contour, these circles or these ellipses that we're making up the finger are curving. The finger's curving up this way. So if you were to draw contours up and down that finger, that would happen like that. So any wrinkles you do, you want those wrinkles to kind of work with those contours, okay? If you wanted to go as far as to make like what's called a cross contour, you can actually take the outer edge and kind of work your way both. You're almost making like a grid over top of the finger, okay, to show yourself how you would actually break that thing down. All right, same thing with the thumb, right? I'm going to need some wrinkles. They're going to work with that contour, things like that, okay? When I go do the fingernail, all right, I'll show you this a little more detail, but when I go do the fingernail, I want to make sure that it's actually working, again, with the contour of the finger, and that it's actually going in, all right? You can see on this one that, I'll show you the thumb, that fingernail is raised off of the thumb and goes into flesh. So it would be something like that, okay? Again, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. If you wanted to just do, let's say we're going to turn this hand around and do it from the front. Some people like to do like a muscle for the thumb, a muscle for the other side of the palm, something like this for the pads on your hand, all right? And then they'll go and they'll just lay out, where the fingers are going to go from there, and they'll do something like this, which is fine, all right? You're still going to evolve into some sort of basic form, right, to make up that thumb, right? You're still going to make a basic form around that line to make that finger, okay? No matter how you do it, how you choose to break it down, you're going to start with something basic, build it to something slightly more involved, right? A little more detailed shape, and gradually, gradually adding where things overlap, okay? Where the creases are, where the folds are, where the skin is, where the nails are, things like that. So again, there's a lot of different ways that you can actually go about making this hand. One thing that people sometimes do is they'll break it down very geometrically, okay? So they'll do something where, if the body of the hand is this, right? And they'll do all the fingers as if they're very squared off shapes like this, all right? And they'll use circles for muscle groups, but then they'll have a very squared, robotic type hand. It's fine, all right? It's totally fine to do that. In the end, you're still going to take that and you're still going to round it out, and you're still going to gradually move, all right, from that basic form into a more detailed form, okay? Really, however you do it is fine, as long as you're gradually building from those basic forms into gradually more detailed forms, okay? When we're talking about fingernails, all right, fingernails are something that, people they'll make a finger, all right, and then they'll just like stick a nail on it, all right? That, I don't know any human hand that actually looks like that. When you look at your fingernail, right, your fingernail is growing out from underneath the flesh, okay? So we have to make it look like that. It curves, right? If you look at it now, obviously my nails are not long, but you can see that they're curving with the finger. They're not flat, okay? So if I was doing a finger from above like this, all right, and I get the shape of the actual finger, I want to draw where that flesh is, okay? And then I want to have that fingernail coming out from there, and I want that fingernail to curve with that finger, okay? If I'm seeing it from the side, all right, and I have, let's say this is my fingertip, okay? I want to have flesh that comes up. I want to have a fingernail that raises off the surface and then comes back into the finger, and then show where the rest of the finger is coming off that, all right? If you're somebody that has long nails, all right, let's say these are just longer, all right, it's the same thing, all right, it's just going to stick out a little further if you're somebody who grows your nails out long, okay? All right, so when you're doing the fingernails, don't do stuff like this, okay? One other thing that I just want to show you real quick that you're probably going to run into is something called foreshortening. Foreshortening is a fancy way of saying that we're putting the figure, or in this case the hand, in perspective, okay? So if I go back to what I was just saying, right, and I have a finger broken into cylinders like this, okay? So I have that finger like that. As I move this finger towards myself, these are going to get shorter. The distance between these two ellipses are going to get shorter, all right? And these ellipses are going to open up to be more circular. So if I was to bend this finger slightly forward, all right, nothing changes with this one. This ellipse opens up slightly. That distance closes a little bit. This ellipse opens up more, and that distance closes a little bit. And this ellipse opens up much more, okay? And what I wind up with is a finger that's bending towards myself, right? With this, if you can imagine, you'd have a nail here, all right? As that finger bends down even further, those ellipses all open up, right? So now this is what this once was. This one is back here, All right, this one is about the same as it was there, and this one hasn't changed. All right, so if I do this, I now have the top part of my finger coming towards me. The middle part of my finger is bending, all right, and it's going to overlap the other one. I'm going to see a lot of overlap of flesh, all right, and to show you, make it a little more clearer, your fingernail would sit something like that, and now you've got a finger that's kind of bending towards you. Okay, anytime you do any sort of pose that has your fingers coming at you, you're going to have to worry about making, you know, those ellipses work in such a way that this finger makes sense, that it's bending and coming towards us. All right, and it's really a key in just how they overlap. So if I overlap that correctly, it's going to make it look like it. What people do, all right, because they can't figure out how this works in their head, rather than do something like this, they'll make their finger and they'll start bending their finger this way. And what you've got now is you've got a finger that is just completely broken. This is a broken finger. That's not how fingers actually bend. Okay, so don't think about what you should see. Draw what you actually do see and break it down into those forms. All right, so anytime you have that, all right, where somebody's coming towards you, you're gonna have to worry about that. Okay, there are some things that you can go off of in terms of like measurement. Okay, so when you look at a hand, right, normally your middle finger is about the same as the palm of your hand. So if you're drawing something, if we go back to this one, all right, if we go back here and I take this distance and I come down and measure that distance, I can see that they're the same, so that's good. Okay, when you're drawing it, when you're looking at your own hand, your thumb should be able to reach across and grab the bottom of that knuckle, right? So if I take the distance of this thumb and I kind of pivot it, it should reach the bottom of that knuckle. Okay, so I can do things like that to make sure that I'm not having like a huge palm or a tiny palm with a huge thumb or things like that, so I keep things proportional. Okay, again, there is a lot of different ways that you can actually draw these hands, but the biggest thing is just starting with basic forms, okay, and then gradually building up to the detail. Okay, when you go to actually shade these hands, you have to shade each individual part. Okay, so that becomes challenging for people sometimes. They want to look at this and be like, okay, well, my light's coming from here, so everything over here is going to be dark, and this finger is going to be a little lighter, this finger is going to be a little lighter. It's not done that way. Okay, if your light is coming from here, how this, and I'm going to go really quick with this, but how this thumb reacts to that light, all right, how it hits that is going to be very different from how it hits this finger, okay, or how it reacts to this knuckle, or how it's affecting this webbing between the fingers. So every single part of this finger, every digit, every knuckle, every fingernail, every fold is going to react differently to that light source. Okay, one thing that can help you is these cross contours, right? If I'm looking at this hand and I know, okay, well, it's all going to curve this way, right? Then I know that when I do this light source, that I'm going to make sure that I'm still going to work with my small circles, right? Because we're using pencil, but I'm going to work on that curve so that finger starts to become round. Okay, all right, and we'll get into that a little bit further down the road, but some of you guys are going to jump into that sooner than others. Okay, all right, if you got any questions, shoot me a text all right, or an email, or jump on the Google Meet, all right, during class and ask whatever you got. All right, good luck.